lot of people in life wait for perfect moments. The reality is you're never gonna constantly be perfect. Knowing that you do have to go through these hurdles, it becomes a part of life.
There's power in embracing the suck, but what was it that made you keep going?
Even though you're doing everything by the book, you might look in the mirror and not see the result. If you stick to that, eventually you're gonna see the results because of the hard work you put in.
We do door-to-door sales. It's hot, we get rejected. What were some of the practical things that you were doing?
Asking people, connecting with people. I would look at the mentees in the room that were seeing the most success and identify who's training those people. Ask them, come out on the doors and like look at my door approach, hear my pitch, ask for advice. Like closed mouths don't get fed.
You've installed several hundreds and hundreds of kilowatts in solar, made several millions of dollars personally selling as well as leading. But what drives you as a leader?
First thing is like,
welcome to the V.I.P, the Valor Impact Podcast. My name is John Soriano. We believe that you can have it all, that you can be successful in all areas of your life, your faith, your family, your fitness, your finance, that you do not have to choose between one or the other. And as you listen in, take notes, take it all in, ask yourself, how can I apply this today? How can I go out there and execute today? Because we're gonna teach you a wide range of things from sales, from leadership, to finances, to mindset, to even how to have success in sales and in your marriage. And my only ask is that you like this video, you subscribe to it, you share it with somebody in the sales industry, and that you also ultimately go out there and execute on everything that you want. Welcome to the V.I.P, the Valor Impact Podcast, where we are on a mission to raise up 10,000 men and women of valor who believe that their best self is found on the other side of doing hard things. We will interview multiple people that have had success in the door-to-door space, and they will share insights, wisdom, strategies on how you too can gain the success that they've had. Today we have Malik Dayyani on the show. He is a regional manager at Legacy Power. He's been in the solar industry for 5 years and has done remarkable things in those 5 years. So Malik, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to see what this show evolves into and where this podcast goes. Sometimes we implement things in our division that start off as an idea, and then to see where they go and like the impact that they have. I think it's a perfect name for this podcast. I'm excited. Thank you for having me on here.
So share with us your background. I know one thing that you and I are similar in is the fact that we're both immigrants, and we both kind of got to see the world in a different way than maybe most Americans have. So share with us a quick story of your background and ultimately what got you into solar.
Yeah. So it actually starts off with my dad. My dad was born in Damascus, Syria. A lot of countries outside of the US, like you have to serve in the military for you to like even like be able to like leave the country. And my dad literally had to graduate top in his class in all of Syria for him just to like leave Syria. So for me to be even born in the US, it's like 1 out of a million. But I was born in California. I lived here till I was about 10. And then right around there, I moved to Dubai. I lived there for around 7 years, and then I moved to Oman, which is right under Dubai. I always went to American school, so I always had that American curriculum and that background. And then we moved around a lot because of my dad, but there's one thing that like held me back to like always wanting to go back to California. And so I just moved back here. I didn't know anyone. I didn't have a credit score. The only person I knew here was my sister. And I just moved back here, a man and a dream and $1,000. That's pretty much it.
I feel like a lot of that has to do with conviction. And I know that's part of your story and the success you've had in solar. What about America? What about the United States kind of gave you conviction that this is where you wanted to plant your roots?
Yeah. So a lot of these second world, third world countries, like when they build on what they have, like a lot of Dubai was built off of like outside minds, like Europeans and Americans. And even though they're developed modern countries and they're super advanced, like the minds come from like all the colleges and the successful companies in the US. I always wanted to go back to California. I mean, a lot of, famous people started off in California, a lot of great companies, Apple, like a lot of big things started off in California. And I just knew if I was surrounded, because it's all about your environment, right? If I surrounded myself with the best of the best that have built companies, that have have created like insane products, that have done things like actors and all that. Like it all started off in California, and my initial goal is to build a brand. So yeah,
Well, the funny thing about California is that to make it here, you have to do well. I mean, or you're not going to enjoy it. It's funny. I tell my wife often, it's like we're paying a tax for the sun, because the weather is awesome here. And that's why a lot of people flock here. But also that's why a lot of people can't afford to live here. And that's why I love the solar industry, because it gives people like you and I an opportunity to make great income and get to live in one of the most beautiful states in the country. So, on the same topic of conviction, I know you got into sales. I believe solar was your first sales job.
Solar was my first sales job.
Yeah. Yeah. So what led to that conviction of like, I gotta get in solar sales? Because you were a personal trainer before, right? I know you have a crazy fitness transformation story.
Yeah.
maybe for a different day, but I mean, I've seen some of the before and after photos. But what led you to that conviction into getting into solar sales?
Yeah. I mean, like just coming to the US, being in California, everything is super expensive here. And like, even just to afford rent, like you can't be making like 50, 60K a year. Like you can't do that. I mean, you can, but you're going to be basically like eating eggs for breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day.
Hey, I did that for a bit.
Yeah.
I remember I had ramen for lunch, breakfast, or breakfast, lunch, and dinner for a good 6 months. I was trying to make it, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, when you on the journey there, yeah, of course you have to do things like that. But so I was just on Indeed, I was applying because I was like in the Middle East, I had a big network and I was like a pro personal trainer. So I had a big network and I had high level clients. But when I moved here, I didn't have that network. I didn't have those clients, right? I didn't know anyone. And I was just applying on Indeed. I was tired of being broke. I was living with my sister at the time. She had an extra room, so I was living with her. Still grateful to her till this day for her opening up for me, because if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be where I'm at. But I was just applying on Indeed, and I just was applying to a bunch of jobs, any jobs that were like between 80 to like 120K. I was like, boom, 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 just applying. And I just randomly came across, like, I got a call and it was like a solar interview, and it wasn't Legacy. It was a whole nother company. Long story short, went into the meeting. I just felt slightly off. There was a guy in a suit. It was like a guy in like an old cheap suit. He wasn't actually in his actual office. He was renting a spot. And I don't know, something felt off. So I reached out to one of my only friends I had at the time, my good friend Shane, and he told me, hey, like if you're gonna do solar, I know the spot, I know the guys, they like do it, they make a lot of money and they do really well. And then I just came into Legacy, and yeah, I've just been there since.
Yeah, come on. Hey, shout out Shane, dude.
Let's go.
Great recommendation.
Yeah.
And share with us now your journey in solar. I remember you didn't do super well the first few months. Yeah. I say this, I don't know if it's factual, but I thought Malik had a really thick accent back then. And I think it was really hard for people to understand you. At least it was hard for me to understand you. I don't know, maybe I hear less now. All that to say, though, you didn't necessarily have the best introduction. And I think people often, they quit when they're an inch away from gold, right? Or they do something for 30 days and they're like, oh, this doesn't work, or this isn't for me, I'm just gonna give up. And then they go through this cycle where they're like doing all these things over and over and over again. But there's power in being persistent, right? There's power in being consistent. There's power in embracing the suck and kind of having this like, I'm gonna persist until I succeed. And you display that so well, because your first few months in solar were rough. It took you, I think, a few months just to even get your first sale, let alone your first install, let alone your first paycheck. But what was it that made you say, or that made you keep going? Like, what was that determining factor for you that said, man, like I'm going to keep going? And feel free to share also just even that part of your journey and what that was like for you.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it all goes back to like working out. I know, like, when you first start working out, like even though you're doing everything by the book, you might look in the mirror and not see the results. And it's like, if you stick to that, eventually one day you're going to look in the mirror and, you're going to see the results because of the hard work you put in. And just knowing like other people have done it and then have attained a lot of money led me to like having that conviction that I can do it too. They're not better than me. Like, even though I do have an accent, which I don't think primarily was like the main reason, it was more of like the mentorship going in. But I have this this like big mindset of like a famous quote, and this is a brand I wear, but it's only those who risk are free, right? And sometimes you have to like go the extra mile. Sometimes you do have to take a risk, like whether that's an investment or whether that's, you know, trusting in someone or trusting in an opportunity. And sometimes plan B is plan A. And sometimes you just got to go hard and execute, knowing that other people have done it and it's possible and you could do it, led me to have that conviction and belief that, you know, hey, I can do it too. This guy's not better than me. The guy who made, you know, 250,000 on Big Check Friday when I first joined, I'm like, damn, like you can make that much money. And I didn't, like, I was in California. I wanted to move out. I was already in the room of like people who were making that money, and it was possible. And the ceiling was only as high as you know, made it to be. And, you know, I just believed that I could do it.
Yeah, you said a few good things there. What was that quote? You said
only those who risk are free.
Only those who risk are free. And when you said that, I was reminded. I saw this meme. Actually, I've seen it many times, but essentially, it's two photos of a lion. One of them is in a cage, and it says, you know, this lion gets 3 meals a day. You know, he's protected from outside predators. He doesn't have to worry about the harsh conditions, right? And essentially, you see a lion that is domesticated, but he's secure, he's safe, right? And then you see this other lion, he's out in the wilderness, and it was like, you know, this lion has no guarantee of when his next meal is coming. You know, he could be attacked by anybody at any moment. He's bound to the harsh climate of the safari desert, whatever. And then it said, you know, which one is really free? Right. And so, you know, yeah, the second lion is free, right? Even though the first lion has security and protections. And I think often, you know, we see that play out in our generation, right? We see a lot of people that have decided to take on the safe route, right? And look, I have nothing against 9-to-5ers, right? I believe that, hey, if you want to be a teacher and you love being a teacher, by all means, go be a teacher, right? But there are some people who they do a job just for the paycheck, right? They're just doing it for the paycheck. They're not doing it because they truly, truly love what they do, because they're choosing the safe route. They're like that one lion, like they have a guaranteed pay coming in, right? They have benefits. They know exactly the environment they're going to be in. Where in our industry, right? We're like that lion. We don't know, right? I mean, I think the longest I went without a paycheck was probably 6 months. I think that was the longest I ever went from like one paycheck to the next was 6 months. 6 months of no paycheck. Like that's hard, right?
It teaches you something.
It teaches you, right? Yeah. Like, hey, look, I remember I got scrappy. Like I said earlier, I lived off ramen literally for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for like 6 months, if not longer. Because, you know, hey, that's like
crazy.
That's like $2 a day, you know, if even that, you know. And I had food though. I was good. So like, you know, when I say that, I mean, how in your first few months, did you feel like that second lion where you had no protections, and like what did you do? Like, what were some practical things you did to get through that initial hump until you start seeing some consistent results?
Yeah, I mean, one thing, first and foremost, and this is something that I still do on a daily basis, but like God first, like, you know, you wake up in the morning, your feet touch the ground. The first thing that you should think of is your creator, who created you, who gave you the ability to speak, the ability to hear, who blessed you with amazing parents. Like it's all from God. And I always put God first in my life. And I'm not a perfect person by any means whatsoever, but I always put God first. I trust in God and I ask God's, and then I ask God for wherever I want to be, and then I act on it. Because everyone can ask for God. Hey, I want to be $1 billion. God, please give me $1 billion. You know, like if you're not actually working on it and applying it, like God will open up doors for you, but He's not going to knock the doors for you, right? And so that's first and foremost, is put God first. Trusting the process. Like I had to trust that, you know, other great people or other top closers or other people who are making the money that I made went through what I had to go through. And it's like, hey, I have to go through this, right? And it's the same thing like when you're in the gym, it's like, hey, to get to the body that you want to go to, you have to go through, you have to fight these pain barriers. You have to learn how to like turn pain into something that you love experiencing. And eventually what was once hard will become normal, right? So like trusting the process, and then just knowing, like having that belief that no matter what anyone else has done, like I can do it too. Because like every successful person, every CEO of a big company, every athlete was once not like they weren't just born that, they were once an average individual. The guy on the beach, right, that has a $20 million home, like he was once an average individual, unless he was just born into like an oil rich family, like
Very unlikely, but yeah.
Yeah, but so just knowing that, you know, you do have to go through these hurdles and like you do have to overcome stuff, and that never stops. It becomes a part of like life. And, you know, a lot of people in life wait for perfect moments or a perfect slate or like a perfect clean canvas. And the reality is like, you're never going to have that. Like, even if like, you're never going to constantly be perfect. And, you know, me and you have like talked about this where sometimes you break down and I break down no matter at what level you're at. And it's okay to go through those phases because we're human and you have to, but it's like, who are you going to become out of it? And what are you going to make of it?
Yeah, you actually said this a few times. You said that you notice like, hey, if that person can do it, you know, I can do it as well. Right. And I think oftentimes people think that the ones that achieve success, that have the money, have, you know, the things they want, whatever, that they got lucky, right? Or that they were just blessed or they were born that way. But the truth is like you said it, no one's born that way. You know, these are skills that you can develop, and you realize you're like, hold up, if that guy can do it, I can do it. And we've seen some people that I'm like, okay, there's some people that are like, okay, I can see that. I can see why you've had those results. But then you meet some other people, you're like, wait, you made how much? And then you see how they show up and they're dressed half as good as you, or they're not maybe in the best shape. And you're like, okay, if you can achieve the results, then what excuses do I have? But you actually use that as ammo for good, where you're like, okay, if at least one person can do it, then that shows that that's possible. It kind of reminds me of the guy that broke the 4-minute mile, right? Like for years, people were trying to break the 4-minute mile. But the moment one person broke it, all of a sudden it showed possibility to many others of like, okay, if that person can do it. And I think he held the record for less than a week before it was broken again. And then that guy held the record for a few days before it was broken again. And so the moment one person showed what was possible, all of a sudden it opened this floodgate of other people showing what's possible. And, you know, that's a mindset that you have that is identical to a lot of people that have had success in solar. So what were some practical things that you were doing in, let's say, your first 6 to 12 months, right? So, you know, we do door-to-door sales, right? We're knocking, it's hot, we get rejected, we get failed credits, we get cancels. What were some of the practical things that you were doing? So you mentioned one of them, right? Okay, you know, your faith is very important to you. You wake up, you say thank you to God, right? That grounds you, that reminds you what's really important, that reminds you that, hey, even though I may not have the financial results, I have health, I have family, I have people that love me, I have a roof over my head, which is very important because it can be very easy for us to focus on what we don't have. Like, what are some other things like that you did practically that helped you get through that initial hump?
One of the main one, other than God and trusting the process, is like knowledge. Knowledge is power, right? The most infinite, which is God, right, has an abundant amount, like an endless amount of power because of the knowledge he has, right? Of course, you can't attain an infinite amount of power, else you'll be God, right? But
hey, with AI though, you have access to a lot of knowledge.
But just studying, like reading, like my dad always tells me like read, like, and he keeps telling me that. And if you go into like my dad's like library, he's like read like an insane amount of books. But it started off with just reading like the first most basic sales book, Way of the Wolf, Straight Line Persuasion. I think every door-to-door salesperson should read that. I still use it today on a consistent basis, whether it's consciously, unconsciously. But like the things that you attain from these books that you read, you start applying them consciously in the homes or in your life. But eventually some things you'll start to do them unconsciously, and they start to shape who you become. And you start to take like the best of the best from like different books you read. So books, super important, right? Asking people, connecting with people. A lot of people are like afraid to network or afraid to get closer to someone, right? Like I identify people in the room who are the best of the best, and I'll go and ask them. I'll try to become their friend. I'll try to seek for their advice. I'll try to seek criticism. So that was big for me, is like, you know, identifying those people in the room, because I didn't have the best mentor like coming in. So I was forced to do that. And like I was saying earlier, plan B is plan A, and I'm going to make this happen, right? So identifying those people, because if they could teach you one or two things, like that can move the needle like
Yeah.
by a lot, right?
Let's stop on that for a second. I think you said something really good. I think oftentimes we think mentorship is a mentor reaching out to the mentee and saying, hey, I want to mentor you. I think people think like that's what mentorship is. Like, well, my mentor hasn't reached out, so I'm just not gonna say anything. But I remember you did the opposite, right? You as the mentee reached out to the person that you wanted to be mentored by, and you said, hey, I want you to mentor me. I want you to pour into me. I want to learn from you. I want to see your door approach, right? You took the initiative to ask. And there's many ways we can do that, right? We can do that via podcasts, via books, right? We can be mentored by the GOATs like John C. Maxwell, right? Brian Tracy, Napoleon Hill, and so on and so forth. I like that part of your story is, and you just said it, is you didn't get the best mentorship coming in, but instead of being a victim and being like, oh, like it's their fault, it's his fault, you instead had a victor mindset and you took control of your destiny and you said, okay, I maybe wasn't dealt the best cards that I wanted, but let me go and see what I can get. Let me go and ask and seek mentorship. And I wish more people understood that mentorship is actually the mentee making the asking the mentor, like, hey, I want to be poured by you. And look, sometimes people will say no. Sometimes they'll say, I've asked people like, hey, can I be, I don't necessarily say, can I be mentored by you, but I'll just say, hey, can I take it to lunch, or can we talk some more? And sometimes they say yes, sometimes they say no. And so I think that's one cool aspect about your story. So like, I mean, talk to us about that. Like how were you able to shift who you were being mentored by? Because I think sometimes in this industry, at least, sometimes people are mentored by not the best people, or people who just want to use them, just see them as maybe an appointment setter or as a way to make money. But what were some of the things you did to shift who was pouring into you?
Yep. First and foremost, like you gotta still initially trust your mentor. Like you gotta trust them. But if like series of events are unfolding and it's like it's pretty obvious whether you've been in the space or not, like identifying like, hey, like this is not the person that's probably gonna get me to where I need to go, then I need to spread my wings out. I need to see like, hey, who can I learn from? And I would look at the mentees in the room that were seeing the most success, right? And identify who's training those people, who's in charge of those people. Because there's a common trend with people that are being trained by someone really good. It's most likely because of like, it's most likely because of that individual or that mentor. So I would first identify based off of the results, and then I would derive to like where those results came from and like the source of them, and pretty much like just identify those people in the room and ask to take them out to lunch, or just come out on the doors and like look at my door approach, or have them hear my pitch, or ask for advice. Like closed mouths don't get fed. And like a lot of people are just afraid to ask. And going back to what you were saying earlier, that victim mindset, that was my other one. Like being a victim is like the worst thing that you could do. People are quick to like point fingers, but a lot of people are like, hey, why am I at this? Like people aren't as quick to point fingers at themselves and be like, hey, I'm at this point because of this, and this, and this, and not because of this person or that person or this opportunity, because other people have done it. Like it clearly works. This opportunity exists. People are doing it. People are making the money. People are becoming the person that they want to become. It's not the opportunity. It's not this. It's not that. It's you. Like, have you been reaching out? Have you been looking at the books? Like if I notice people are like having that approach or that mentality, like I'll be quick to ask them like, hey, like what book are you reading right now? Or like, hey, when's the last time you watched a podcast? Or like, hey, when's the last time you asked someone to look at your door approach? Or hey, when's the last time you like, role played your clothes in front of someone? What are you doing in this and this? And like a common trend you'll see where people are victims is that they'll stop and they'll pause and they'll realize like, oh shoot, he's right. Like, I'm just pointing fingers at. So being a victim will never serve you. Like always be yourself. Like leaders are quick to acknowledge their mistakes and acknowledge to always take the blame regardless of if it was them or not. Like if they had a bad mentor, like, yeah, that's obviously not their fault. They had a bad mentor, but what was their fault is they didn't seek advice from other people. They didn't go out and reach out or watch the podcast or, you know, like reach out to different individuals. So,
you know what I've noticed? I want to see if you agree with this. I feel like I see a trend where some of the best leaders, you know, within our company and even within the industry, they have a common theme that they didn't have the best mentors when they first started. Yep. Because I think they have a sense of appreciation for the opportunity, because since they had a pretty bad start, they appreciate it more than the person. What I'm trying to say here is, but then you see the other person who they had a good mentor coming in, but because that's all they knew, they took it for granted. Yeah. You know, like I've had people over the years that's like complain about not getting enough training from a Jack Pastrana or a Stetson Sofer. And I'm like, do you not realize that you're working with one of the best dudes? Like, but they're like, oh, well, you didn't train me enough. And it's like, and I'm just blown away by it. But then I get to thinking, I'm like, well, that's all they knew. So if excellent is all they know, then to them that's normal. But it's not normal. But they don't realize it's normal. Yeah. Right. And so I've actually realized that some of the best leaders usually had a bad kind of start, meaning they didn't have maybe the best mentorship, maybe the best tools. Right. But that's what made them the best, because they had a victor mindset. And then some of the people that end up quitting are people who actually had great mentors. So, and I think that's something that's a struggle I have as a leader, is that balance of like, you don't want to give your people everything, right? Just like a father, I don't want my kids to, you know, be 18 years old and have access to all my finances. No, because then I'm robbing them of challenges. I'm robbing them of failure. And so would you say that you've seen kind of a similar trend in your—
I completely agree. As you were saying that, I was like thinking of like kids that are born into like, you know, a rich household, but then like how that versus like a poor household, and you hear this successful stories, and a lot of successful people are like, yeah, I grew up in the ghetto, or I grew up like, and I didn't have access to this or that, and this is how we lived. But then you also hear successful people that grew up in rich households too. So it's all about like the individual and like the people that are mentoring them, training them, raising them up, like whatever it is. But yeah, I agree. And
I would say it's probably more like you said, the individual raising them up. Like I go back to your dad, right? It sounds like your dad, you said, was one of the most intelligent people in his country, but it also sounds like he didn't just give you whatever you wanted, right? It sounds like he instilled in you habits, characteristics, right? You know, he, like you said earlier, he was like, read, right? Instead of giving it to you, he was like, no, you go seek the knowledge, right? You go read the books, right? You go make something of yourself. Like, it wasn't like you came to California and he gave you a stipend of $100,000 a year and said, all right, son, I'll take care of you. Like, no, right? Because part of your story is you were broke, and I'm sure your dad could have helped you, right? I'm sure he... Right. But you didn't want to, right? Because I think just like a good father understands that there's actually beauty in the struggle. Same thing with a leader. And so, you know, at least I've noticed it's hard to have that balance of like, you don't want to give them too much, but then if you give them too little, right, then they could leave. And anyways, so, which actually leads us into leadership. I mean, you're also a leader, right? You know, you've led the top office and legacy for 3 years. You know, you're in the Legacy Hall of Fame. You know, you've installed, you know, several hundreds and hundreds of kilowatts in solar, made several millions of dollars personally selling as well as leading. You know, kind of give us some of your leadership principles, you know, some things that drive you as a leader.
Yeah. First thing is like, a lot of people start off with leadership as like put others before yourself, but I'll start off with saying like put yourself first. Because if you're not like doing what's right for yourself, like how are you going to train other people to do that as well? How are you going to help shape them? So like first thing is like put like non-negotiables straight, like with the way you approach life, with like your diet, with working out, with sleeping, with being, you know, disciplined, and like not doing the things that you know you're supposed to be like not doing, and then doing the things that you know you're supposed to be doing, because it automatically puts you in a better state to put others before yourself and to like help train others. But I mean, it all goes to like servant leadership, and like a lot of people, a lot of leaders, like even in companies, they don't want you to like be better than them. A lot of people will want you to like get good, but they get threatened by your skill set to like overtake them. And it's like there's two types of like leaders. There's leaders who will train you to like get good, and there's leaders who will train you to get great, right? And like training, and I see this a lot where like people will train people with like limitations, right? Especially if they feel like you're a threat. And it goes back to like the 48 laws of power, where they talk about that.
Yeah. So you said something really good. I think most leaders want you to be just as good as them.
Yeah.
But not better than them, because then, yes, they feel threatened. Yeah. And I think something that every leader, a challenge every leader has to walk through is that kind of imposter syndrome or this insecurity, because I think only a secure leader will allow people to be better. Not, I should say allow, but only a secure leader will be okay, will want, yes, someone to be better with them, right? And I know I go back to being a dad a lot, right? If you can't tell, I love being a dad. You know, and so just like as a father, right? Like me, I have 2 kids. I would never tell my kids, I want you to be just as good as me, but not better than me. No, I would say, no, I want you to go and do far greater things than I ever did. And it's the same thing as a leader. I think one of the metrics of a great leader is, are your people better than you? Like, hey, I'm proud to say that, dude, you're a much better salesperson than I ever was. Stetson, Jack, right? Will Brenly, like all these guys that we have, they are much better salespeople than I ever was when I was a district manager, than when I was a regional manager, right? Like you guys would run circles around DM John, RM John, than where you guys are right now. And I'm not ashamed to say that, right? Because I think it should be like that with every generation of leaders, right? To where, what took me 5 years, you do in 4 years. But then what took you 4 years, the people underneath you do it in 3 years, right? And what took 3 and 2 years, right? And so on and so forth. And so, what kind of as we wrap up, what are some kind of closing thoughts that you have on leadership? I know that you love leadership. You've been able to build an amazing team here in San Diego with Legacy Power. What are some of your closing thoughts on leadership?
Yeah, I mean, like put others before yourself. Like put yourself first, but put others before yourself. Train people like how you would want to be trained. So there's this famous quote is like for your brother what you like for yourself, or like for your neighbor what you would like for yourself, right? And if you wouldn't want to be trained a certain way, don't train somebody that way, right? If you wouldn't want to be if you wouldn't want your leader to show up for you in a certain way, to talk to you a certain way, to train you a certain way, whatever it is, like don't do that yourself, because you wouldn't like if someone did it to you, right? So train individuals, like train with the intention to build, because if like you don't have that mindset where you're trying to raise up people to even become better than you, then you're not going to grow. Like you have to have individuals that become better than you. Like, big companies like IBM, Microsoft, Apple, Tesla, like all these companies, they have people like this. There's different sectors of different people who are way smarter than them in those sectors. And you have to have those individuals for you to grow as a whole and to like build and develop and have fun with it. Like leadership is fun. And the funnest part is like knowing that whether it was 5%, 10%, 20%, or whatever the number is, that knowing that you've like influenced and helped that individual and seeing like where they've gone and how far they've gone, knowing that you like made a small impact in their life, like that is the most rewarding thing, and it's super powerful. And that's why I love leadership. And
I hope people understand that very last thing you said. I think all of us are seeking joy, fulfillment, right? I know you're big on being consistent, persevering and all that. And I think all of that ultimately leads to the sense of joy and fulfillment. And I think one of the greatest joys that you'll find in life is when you help others achieve what they want. Jim Rohn said it the best, right? One of the GOATs in personal development, he said, if you help enough people get what they want, eventually you will get what you want. And that's true in life, right? If you help enough people get what they want. Jeff Bezos, why is he rich? He's helped many people literally get what they want, right? They go on their phone, they order it. Uber, the CEO of Uber, right? Why are they very successful? Because they're able to help people get from A to B, right, in a really quick, effective way. And so I hope people understand that they will discover true joy and fulfillment when they help others get what they want, when they help others become better than them, when they help others achieve faster, more efficient, more purpose-filled results than they ever did. And so thank you for sharing that. Malik, where can people find you? What's like the best way to reach you? You got Instagram, phone number, WhatsApp, Tinder.
Not phone number.
Are you on Tinder?
No, not on Tinder. But my Instagram.
But he is single.
But I am single.
As of
I am single.
October 20th, 2024.
But my Instagram is at Malik, Malik Dayyani, Dayyani. I'd love to connect with you. I'd love to follow you back if you're cool, or if you're beautiful, or if you're like, yeah, my type. But yeah, no, I love, thank you for having me on this podcast. It was fun.
Well, guys, thank you for tuning in to the Valor Impact Podcast, where we really want to extract the gold out of individuals that have done hard things, individuals that believe that their best self is found on the other side of hard things. So thank you guys for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next episode.